What's up, viewers, subscribers, and agents alike? This is Enlightened Luciferian Prince coming at you. And I want to wish every female viewer on this channel, if you're a mom, happy Mother's Day. I hope you enjoy your day. Unfortunately, for me, my mom passed away in 2007. And it's quite all right. Trust me, I will not cry because, as she told me, I'm not going to be here myself forever. So for the most part, I hope you enjoy your Mother's Day and you have a safe Mother's Day. And with no avail, and without further ado, this right here is called Congressional Record, Senate 64th Congress, First Session, Volume 53, Part 7, page 6781, 25th of April, 1916. Also otherwise known as the Secret Treaty of Verona. Now, the Secret Treaty of Verona is an establishment that goes on to say it's an ancient contractual nexus between the monarchical government forms and popular government, which is popular sovereignty, which is what I establish and talk about on my channel. And some people get it confused because they think that this is, according to Wikipedia, they think that this is a conspiracy of sorts, or it's not a genuine, documentation. But it is. It's just that it has been discovered. In the video description, if you see in the video description, it talks about the concept of the tier system of ancient government form, which is transmigrated into the so-called United States Republic. And what this is legitimized documentation, irrespective of what the internet says. This is on congressional record now. So for the most part, if it's recorded in congressional record, then you have to give it some type of credibility because it couldn't have been admitted if it wasn't a genuine source. That's a fact. Without further ado, let us read. I wish to put on the record the Secret Treaty of Verona, November 22nd, 1822, showing what this ancient conflict is between the rule of the few and the rule of the many. I wish to call to the attention of the Senate to this treaty because it is the threat of this treaty, which was the basis of the Monroe Doctrine. It throws a powerful white light upon the conflict between monarchical government and government by the people, the Holy Alliance under the influence of Metternich, the Premier of Austria, in 1822, issued this remarkable secret document, American Diplomatic Code, 1778, 1884, Volume 2, Elliott, page 179. Note, valid source. Secret Treaty of Verona, the undersigned, specially authorized to make some additions to the Treaty of the Holy Alliance, after having exchanged their respective credentials, have agreed as follows. Article 1. The high contracting powers being convinced that the system of representative government is equally as incompatible with the monarchical principles as the maxim of the sovereignty of the people with the high divine right, engage mutually in the most solemn manner to use all of their efforts to put an end to the system of representative governments in whatever country they may exist in Europe, and to prevent it being introduced in those countries where it is not yet known. And I read it like that because it's spaced out. Article 2. As it cannot be doubted that the liberty of the press is the most powerful means used by the pretended supporters of the rights of nations, to the detriment of those princes, the high contracting parties promise reciprocally to adopt all proper measures to suppress it, not only in their own states, but also in all the rest of Europe. Article 3. Convinced that the principles of religion contribute most powerfully to keep nations in a state of passive obedience, which they owe their princes, the high contracting parties declare it to be their intention to sustain in their respective states those measures which the clergy may adopt with the aim of ameliorating, which means furthering, in simple terms, their own interests, so intimately connected with the preservation of the authority of the princes, and the contracting powers join in offering their thanks to the Pope for what he has already done for them, and solicit his constant cooperation in their views of submitting the nations. Article 4. The situation of Spain and Portugal unite unhappily all the circumstances which this treaty has particular reference. The high contracting parties, in confiding to France the care of putting an end to them, engaged to assist her in a manner which may the least compromit them with their own people and the people of France by a means of subsidy on the part of two empires of 20 million francs every year from the date of the signature of this treaty to the end of the war. Article 5. In order to establish the peninsula in the order of things which existed before the Revolution of Cadiz, and to ensure the entire execution of the articles and of the present treaty, the high contracting parties give to each other the reciprocal assurance that as long as their views are not fulfilled, rejecting all other ideas of utility or other measures to be taken, their views will address themselves with the shortest possible delay to all authorities existing in their states and to all their agents in foreign countries, with the view to establish connections tending toward the accomplishment of the object proposed by this treaty. Article 6. This treaty shall be renewed with such changes as new circumstances may give occasion for, either at a new Congress or at the court of one of the contracting parties, as soon as the war with Spain shall be terminated. I read it like that because it's spaced out. Article 7. The present treaty shall be ratified and ratifications exchanged at Paris within the space of 6 months. Made at Verona, the 22nd November, 1822, for Austria, Metternich, for France, Chateaubriand, for Prussia, Bernstorff, for Russia, Nesselrode. I have had to have printed in the Congressional Record this secret treaty because I think it ought to be called now the attention of the people of the United States and of the world. This evidence of the conflict between the rule of the few versus popular government should be emphasized on the minds of the people of the United States, that the conflict now waging throughout the world may be more clearly understood. For after all said, the great pending war springs from the weakness and frailty of government by the few, where human error is far more probable than the error of those many, where aggressive war is the only permitted upon authorizing the vote of those whose lives are jeopardized in the trenches of modern war. Mr. Shafroth, Mr. President, I should like to have the Senator state whether in that treaty there was not a coalition formed between the powerful countries of Europe to reestablish the sovereignty of Spain and the republics of Central and South America. Mr. Owen, I was just going to comment upon that, and I am going to take but a few questions and a few moments to do so, because I realize the pressure of other matters. This Holy Alliance, having put a Bourbon prince upon the throne of France by force, then used France to suppress the constitution of Spain immediately afterwards. And this very treaty gave her the subsidy of 20 million francs annually to enable her to wage war upon the people of Spain and to prevent their exercise of any measure of the right of the self-government. The Holy Alliance immediately did the same thing in Italy, by sending Austrian troops to Italy, where the people there attempted to exercise a like measure of liberal constitutional self-government. And it was not until the printing press, which the Holy Alliance so stoutly opposed, taught the people of Europe the value of liberty, that finally, one country after another seized a greater and greater right of self-government, until now, it may be fairly said that nearly all of the nations of Europe have a very large measure of self-government. However, I wish to call to attention of the Senate and the country to the most important history of the growth of the constitutional popular self-government. The Holy Alliance made it its powers, felt that the wholesale drastic suppression of the press in Europe by universal censorship, by killing free speech and all ideas of popular rights, and by the complete suppression of popular government. The Holy Alliance, having destroyed popular government in Spain and in Italy, had well laid plans also to destroy popular government in the American colonies, which had revolted from Spain and Portugal in Central and South America under the influence of the successful example of the United States. It was because of this conspiracy against the American republics by the European monarchs that the great English statesman Canning called for the attention of our government to it, and our statesmen then, including Thomas Jefferson, took an active part to bring about the declaration by President Monroe in his next annual message to the Congress of the United States, and that the United States should regard it as an act of hostility to the government of the United States in an unfriendly act in its coalition, or if any power of Europe ever undertook to establish upon the American continent any control of the American Republic or to acquire any territorial rights. This is the so-called Monroe Doctrine, the threat under the secret Treaty of Verona to suppress popular governments in the American republics is the basis of the Monroe Doctrine. The secret treaty sets forth clearly the conflict between monarchical government and popular government, and the government of the few against the government of the many. It is in part, in reality, of developing popular sovereignty, when we demand for women equal rights to life, liberty, and the possession of property, to an equal voice in the making of the laws and the administration of laws. This demand on part of the women is made by men, and it ought to be made by men, as well as by thinking progressive women, as it will promote human liberty and human happiness. I sympathize with it, and I hope that all parties will, in the national conventions, give their approval to this larger measure of liberty and to the better half of the human race. The experience we have had in this has made us acquainted with the many advantages that have been taken by the society of its interventions in the marriages of the houses of Austria, and for those which have been effected in other kingdoms, France, Poland, and the various duchies. Forasmuch, assembling, proposing with prudence, selecting choice persons, who may be friends and families of the relatives and the friends of society. It will be easy to gain the princesses, making use of their valets, by that coming to feed and nourish with the relationships of friendships, by being located at the entrance in all parts, and thus becoming acquainted with the most intimate secrets of the familiars. Secret instructions of the company of Jesus, chapter 2. Whoa! Whole mouthful. But people, this is the reason why we have this present consequence today. 1916 was two years after World War I engaged, and that was a few years before that was 4 years before we had the flu epidemic. And what do you think is going on today? Coronavirus means crown. It means particularly the inoculation of diseases amongst the populace, of people who do not know that there is going to be a continuous shift of the wealth between the what they consider the irresponsible few to the irresponsible many to the responsible few. And this is the way it works. This is what's going on today, our present crisis. The reason why we don't focus on what's going on is because we fail to realize what history really is. We don't emphasize on history. We don't. And people can call this conspiracy theory if you want, but as I said again, it's paperwork. It's documentation. You can't get over it. This is on record. You know, I did my due diligence to pull this from records. You know what I'm saying? Now, the one that's online, if you want to be a cheapskate, go ahead. It doesn't fulfill the task of actually addressing everything that it has to do. So if you want to, you can go to Wikipedia. You can get that one. But it's quite all right. People, you have to wake up more now than any time in history, because history is repeating itself constantly, and it will continue to do so. And the reason I put this video on here is because I want you to know the truth, especially when you address my channel. That's all. Happy Mother's Day to all those moms out there. And like I said before, if you have to rewind this video and you know, go over it again, great. Rewind it and rewind it again and go over it. If you wish to contact me, my email's in the video description. If you haven't subscribed, please do. And agents, it's Mother's Day, you fucking bitch. Y'all take care. Peace. I love y'all. And agents,